Pam and Tommy. Where do we begin with this, guys? A lot to break down. I wanted to open this video by saying Disney goes full frontal until I realise, one, there's more important topics at play, and two, it's actually not a Disney movie. It's on Hulu, but I watched it on Disney Plus. So Pam and Tommy, episodes 1 to 3. We're going to look at their relationship. Is it healthy? Is it a toxic mess? And actually, what it is there's a balance between the two. There are healthy aspects. There are aspects that are a red flag. Before I get into this, I want to let you know two things. The first is that I'm focusing on this series. I know these depict real people. I know Pam and Tommy are real people. I'm going to focus on the fictional depiction of them as if they're fictional characters, and here's why. I never want to get on here and analyze real people. So I'm analyzing only what I've seen in the series. I'm not going to speculate on what happened in their private life for real. This is just the depiction, the script, the fictional story that we're seeing on Disney Plus and Hulu. And this is only episodes 1 to 3. Episode 4 is out. I haven't seen it yet. Episode 5, the trailer has just dropped, and I've just watched that. So we're just going from episodes 1 to 3, which is when they met, and it's the whole situation up to and before the release of the tape. So first things first. Oh, the second thing I need to let you know, I'm Cheryl Muir. I'm a relationship, but apparently I'm a professional. I'm also a professional fangirl, and I believe that the arts, film and television tells us a lot about ourselves. And so let's see what we can learn from these two lovebirds, shall we? So firstly, it was a thrilling watch. I was riveted. I watched all 3 episodes in one night. It was exciting. It was fast paced. It made me nostalgic for the 90s. It reminded me of the time in the 90s, not the 90s, the early 2000s, when I used to go to raves and do all of that stuff. And it made me very nostalgic for those times. It also reminded me, of how the party scene can seem so vibrant and exciting when you're there, but then what's going on behind closed doors can be quite different. So let's look at that now. Is their relationship healthy? Isn't it healthy? And what's going on there? So I'm going to cover some red flags first. And here's what I noticed. There's so many, but I'm not going to give you a whole TED talk on it because this would be such a long video. Here's some of the main points. There are, of course, many more. And let me know in the comments below what I've missed, what you noticed, and what you think. It's the internet, so I'm sure you will let me know your opinion either way. First red flag, Pammy's pattern of bad boys. When she met him, she was talking to her girlfriends. She said, I'm done with bad boys. I'm going to marry an accountant and have a quiet life. So the fact that she, that very evening, met him when she said, I'm done with bad boys, was a real concern for me. She's gone against her own promise. She said you wouldn't do it again. She has. She's in this pattern and cycle from that respect, right? The second thing is they got married very, very quickly. That's not always a bad thing. That's not a black and white thing. That's not, oh, that's definitely good, that's definitely bad. It's not this binary thing. But here's what does concern me. That scene on the plane when they've got married, they're coming back from Cancun, and it's kind of awkward, and they're talking to each other, and they're learning things about each other, like their families and where they live and where are they going to live as a married couple. They're talking about that for the first time after they're married. They are things you really want to cover before the event. You cannot smack 2 lives together. There's got to be a conversation and a real melding of lives here, and they were not thinking about it. The basic things you should know before you make that kind of commitment, right? And they weren't really judging that. They weren't thinking about it because, point number 3, they were under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Obviously, we are not in our right mind. We cannot make our best decisions when we're under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I should know. I've been sober for 7 years, but I used to do a lot of drugs and drink a lot, which is linked to trauma. Addiction and trauma are inextricably linked, if you didn't know. So these are 2 people that are certainly having a relationship with drugs and alcohol while having a relationship with each other. And, in my experience in real life, the people that you get along with when you're high are not necessarily the people that are going to be great when the party ends. I was working with a client the other day and gave the analogy of the VIP section of our life, which is an analogy by Terry Cole. Who is in your VIP section? Is there someone glugging the champagne that should be kicked out of the VIP section? Someone that's taking from you a lot. It doesn't mean you have to kick them out of your life, kick them out of the establishment, but they should be at the bar buying their own drinks. They're not drinking your champagne anymore, right? So that analogy of the VIP section can be used quite literally here, like they are in it for the good times together. There's really been no conversation or any real proof to each other, either from, Pam to Tommy, Tommy to Pam. They've not proved to each other that they're going to be able to get through hard times together, and they're about to go through a very, very hard time, and they really don't know how that's going to go. So, and I'm also not sure how it's going to be portrayed on camera and how realistic that is, and how they are, how much is dramatized and how much is accurate. I really don't know. I can't speculate. Fourth point that really concerns me is he pursued her without her agreement, and she said no repeatedly, and he went ahead and kept following her, which is extremely concerning behavior, is it not? I think that it is. The fifth point, now I've said I'm not going to speculate, and I'm not, but my fifth point is just real life. Real life being something did happen between them that was extremely concerning. And I'm not going to mention it here because I don't know what happened. I don't know them. I don't know what occurred between them. But some stuff happened, and I'm not going to address that here because I don't know their life. And until and unless it's actually revealed in the series, then I'll speak to it. But you probably know what I'm talking about. And that's something that obviously we don't condone. And if that's happening in a relationship, we must leave. And I've obviously done interviews about that before. So let's move on to the things that I thought were more positive, that I thought, these are traits that are slightly healthier. And by the way, no relationship is binary. It's not this black and white, healthy, unhealthy, toxic, not toxic thing. Even though I gave you a bit of a clickbait in the thumbnail, it's really not as clear cut as that. Healthy people have bad moments. People that are, abusive have moments where they're kind. Like, it's not so black and white. It's a mixture of things. And this is why I'm trying to look at this from all different angles. But some of the positive things that I did notice in episodes 1 to 3 is their tenderness towards each other when they were alone. They were, exploring each other's bodies. They're quite protective of each other. A point that I haven't made is that Tommy was changing his behavior in that there was a point before he proposed, and his friend made some comment like, "Oh my God, can you imagine sleeping with that girl?" And he said, "Yeah, it's going to be amazing." And he said, "What do you mean you haven't?" And he's like, "No, we haven't." So the fact that he's waiting until he's married to her is a change for him, and he definitely does care for her really deeply and sees her as this really incredible woman who he wants to marry her. And he has this conversation with himself. He has this conversation with himself, and he decides to marry her. But he has changed his behavior in that respect, and that does seem to be a move in the right direction. Also, point number 2, Tommy is really supportive of her career. We see this in episode 2, I think it is, when she has her, big monologue, and he's really excited for her. He watches her practice. He is encouraging. He, when she comes home, he's made her a dinner from his homeland because he's Greek, and he's celebrating her and encouraging her. And when it doesn't go as well as she thought, when something happens at work, he's got her back, and he's saying, you need to stand up for yourself at work, and she does. They are really, really positive traits. He's definitely a supportive partner within that context. We haven't seen yet how they're going to portray his support of her when the tape is released. From what I understand from the clips, they're going to go in the direction of him saying, this is just as bad for me. And she's like, no, it isn't. It's worse for me. So we'll see how that goes, and I can't comment yet until I've seen episode 4. I will do another video on that. So there is love there. Point number 3, there is love there between them. There certainly is. And it feels real, and it feels genuine, and they feel genuinely in love with each other, and really want what's best for each other, and continue to be surprised by each other. She's surprised by him and his ability to cook this beautiful meal. He's surprised by her, knowing all the words to that song in that film, and they're continually surprised by each other, possibly because they've known each other for 4 days and didn't really get to know each other first, but that's, it is what it is. The fourth thing is they're sexually compatible. The sexual energy in this movie, I mean, that they were such, from what I understand, sexual people anyway, and certainly the way they're being portrayed as characters is they have both this sexual magnetism. As a bisexual person, it was very confusing for me. I didn't know who I was more attracted to. They both have this sexual magnetism that is, you know, raw and animalistic and incredibly powerful and passionate. And what I do think is interesting, not to again go onto the real people thing too much, but you know, Lily James, of course, became well known for playing Cinderella, and now she's portraying Pamela Anderson, two very different roles. And what I think is interesting, what I've noticed in some of her press for this series, is she has a slightly more seductive aura, and I've heard her talk about this character and how person, but character within the context of what we're saying. And she said, you know, it was a very sad day when I had to say goodbye to her, goodbye to this character. And she says, you know, I feel like a part of her has stayed with me. So I've heard actors talk about that before, when the characteristics of a character stay with them and they start to embody some of those characteristics themselves. I know you have to be careful of how far you go with that. We saw things going a very tragic direction with Heath Ledger, of course, all those years ago. But there are instances in which an actor is able to really retain some of the lessons from that character and embody some of their qualities. And I see with Lily James how she is really embodying some of that, you know, seduction and sexual magnetism that she really played with after embodying this character. And Sebastian Stan, I think, is fairly well known for having this, you know, sexual magnetism. I know there's a massive fandom around him and around the Winter Soldier and Bucky Barnes, and those, they're kind of the same character, but they're not. I don't know, it's hard to say. I've never been in that fandom, but I have seen the fandom from afar, and I respect you, I salute you, and if you're watching and you're from that fandom, hello. I hope I'm doing this justice. And I don't know too much about his roles, you know, but I did see him as Bucky in the Winter Soldier, and he certainly, even though he's not my cup of tea, I think, God, he does have a real sexual magnetism that he brought to that character and to Tommy Lee as well. So these two are definitely sexually compatible, but it did certainly seem like they made the decision about the direction of their relationship in the sex haze, which is perhaps not the the time to make a decision about long-term commitment. So I'm not going to recap because I feel like we've laboured the point enough. But that is episodes 1 to 3. We could also touch on, you know, the relationship we have to revenge and to taking our power back. Seth Rogen's character I found very empathetic, you know, particularly in episode 1, where we see things from his point of view. And I thought, God, this is a guy that's been beaten down. This is a guy that cannot pay his bills. This is a guy that's, you know, been overgiving and been really accommodating and been kind of like the quote unquote nice guy. And he's being dicked around by this rock star. And you can never justify what he did, but you can understand why he did it. And isn't that so important when you're watching something like this, to really understand someone's motivations? You know, these characters are not cackling villains. No one's the villain, no one's the hero. They're complex human beings, and I really, really like where they've gone with it so far. Now, I do sense that it's going to get a little darker now in episodes 4 and 5 and beyond, and I have a feeling of where they're going to take it. And again, my analysis today is really based on just episodes 1 to 3, but I did also want to touch on how Seth Rogen's character is one that I really empathized with and in a way kind of rooted for. And it's interesting to see where he's going to go with this too. Is there anything else I need to tell you? I want to talk about our relationship to revenge, to our own sexuality, and to Pam and Tommy themselves and to each other. I think we've covered everything. What do you think? Have you watched the episodes 1 to 3? Are you enjoying the series so far? What do you want me to see? What do you want to see me cover next? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. And if this video was interesting or helpful or entertaining, do give me a like and a share and a comment below. It does help me to reach more people, and hopefully we can continue having conversations about these people who certainly are having a very interesting relationship with each other. I'm going to watch episode 4 tonight. I will report back hopefully tomorrow, maybe in a couple of days once I've seen episode 4. Thank you for watching. I've been Cheryl Muir, relationship expert at cherylmuir.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter. My handle's there, Cheryl J. Muir. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Relationship Expert Reacts.